Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We start our meetings with item number 2, public comment. We have 2 minutes per speaker, and you can address the board about any particular issue. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Please step forward and please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Ann Olson. I'm the Executive Director of Animal Folks based in Minnesota, 1041 Grand Avenue, St. Paul. I wanted to address the dog breeder ordinance on the agenda. As you may remember, in 2016, the board considered an interim ordinance for a moratorium. It was voted down. We believe a moratorium to study the dog breeding industry, permit conditions, compliant efforts, and its impact on animals, consumers, and the community was needed then, and it's needed now, even more. From our research, we believe many permits have been granted without clear measures in place to ensure compliance. We understand land use is a priority, but we also believe the treatment of the animals should not be dismissed. We have spoken with residents who are not supportive of large-scale dog breeding operations. We also spoke with a resident who lives in Utica and is a neighbor of 2 breeders. He is very opposed to these kennels due to the noise. I am asking that the board give time so that with this issue so that the public can present concerns to you. My hope is that the discussion today will allow for a broad consideration of multiple issues, including moratorium on further breeding operations to allow a study of current conditions of the dog breeding ordinance, measures to ensure compliance, including impact on adjacent properties, any regulatory measures, such as inspection, enforcement actions, penalty, whether administered by the county, the state, or federal government, the dog breeding industry itself, and treatment of the animals there will be, and a ban on further permits. Mass production of puppies through these dog breeding facilities is, as mentioned before, an antiquated business model. It's a concern to many people in Winona County as well as in Minnesota and throughout the world, especially because the puppies get shipped nationwide. This issue deserves deliberate research, thought, and attention. Thank you for your time, and thank you for placing this on the agenda.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the county board? Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Craig Zekas. I live at 676 Walnut Street in District 4 of Winona County. Good morning, commissioners, county staff, residents of Winona County. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'm before you today to encourage you to abandon your drive to change the county charter that would allow you to implement changes you desire or feel necessary under public emergency. Holding a public hearing is mere protocol and accomplishes nothing but allowing you to move on to your next action of implementing your power. The voters of Winona County have no say other than to express their feelings. If this change is something truly needed, it should be put on a ballot in the next election for all county voters to have a stake in it. Your current drive to mask Winona County is out of place and not within the realm of your duties. As I understand the position of County Commissioner, you are charged with preparing an annual budget, establishing and levying taxes, investing all idle cash. You are responsible for the operation of the county and delivery of county services. Government leads by encouraging and supporting residents to be responsible, not by dictating activities or action. We now have a national mandate that is the reverse of original position. Take time to see how that plays out before you elevate yourself above your constituents. Already, workers have responded negatively in medical institutions within the country by not coming to work or leaving their job. Voters should decide their future, not a handful of individuals. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the county board? I'm seeing nobody in the boardroom. Is there anybody on the phone that wants to address the county board? If so, just state your name and address.
Yeah, hi, this is Eric Wallen, 1411 Heights Boulevard, Winona. And I'd like to also address the masking issue. In Minnesota, there have been 664,459 people that have contracted COVID. 1.2% of them died. The median age was 82. 1.1% of them ended up in the ICU. The median age was 64. 5.4% were hospitalized. The median age was 63. The overwhelming majority of all of these occurred between October 2020 and December of 2020. Since then, 40% of our county has been fully vaccinated. 12% at least have been exposed and recovered. And doctors have learned to better treat those that are severely ill, bringing up better outcomes. In November 27th, 2020, there were 105 deaths in Minnesota. On September 13th, 2021, there were 11 deaths, a huge reduction. Hospitalizations peaked in the winter of 2020 at over 1,500 per week and are now less than 500 a week and dropping. ICU admissions peaked in the winter of 2020 at 300 a week and have been flat since at less than 100. Deaths have been flat and declining since February of 2020, less than 20 per week after peaking in December 2020 of 90 per week. It's time to end the cycle of masking, distancing, shutdowns, etc. You were voted in to represent your constituents. Please represent them and make masking and other mandates a choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the county board?
Good morning, David Kramer, 573 East 4th Street, St. Charles. I had the good fortune of spending the weekend with my daughter in Seattle, and my other daughter from Rochester came with us. She works in Rochester. Both of them are nurses who work in the critical care unit. The bulk of their patients have contracted COVID. Majority of those unfortunately have not been vaccinated. My one daughter just made a comment that 80% of their patients that get intubated don't make it. They're dealing with these fatalities in their normal workday of COVID every day in their workday. And I just would recommend, as an elected board responsible for the health and welfare in the county, that you just consider doing appropriate things along those lines to do what we can to keep the people safe and get through this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the county board? Is there
Yes,
anyone
hello.
else wishing
Can you
to
hear me?
address the county board?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Adolf Sheltnick, 868 East 7th Street. I also do not want this mask mandate. I'm sick of these mandates. Time and time again, it's proved that these do not help stop the spread of COVID. And as much as the media wants to suppress the facts that this mask doesn't help, we're never going to get to the bottom of it. Please vote with your constituents that do not want this. I've talked to so many people on the east end of Winona that that do not want this mandate. It's unconstitutional, and if I'm calling in when I have a job that I have to do, then this is pretty serious. We're sick and tired of the government telling us that we need to wear a mask when it's proven that masks don't work. If you really care about the health of the people of Winona County, how far are you going to take this? Maybe we should shut the restaurants back down again, because it's kind of a joke when you walk into a restaurant having to wear a mask, and then you sit down and you take your mask off and the guy behind you is 2 feet from you. So you can't have it both ways. Either completely shut everything down again or open everything back up. And I really hope you decide to just open everything back up. And we're tired of it. People are not going to comply anymore. If there's one thing that I've learned in politics in the last 4 years is do not comply, because it seems to be what is working in this system right now is just, don't comply and resist, right? So I don't know why you guys are even trying to force this mandate down people's throats. People don't want it. So you're wasting your time. I don't know of any other counties in the state of Minnesota that have a mask mandate right now. So I don't know what you guys have to gain by this. There's obviously something underlying the cause, but to me, I feel like the mask is a religion similar to that in line of the Ayatollah of Iran making women wear hijabs. It's a religion of a certain political group of people right now trying to force it down everybody's throat. And we don't want it, and we're not going to comply. We will resist it. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the Winona County Board? Is there anyone else wishing to address the board?
Hello.
Good morning.
Hi there. I'm Matt Marsalik, 23914 Garvin Heights Road. I just want to echo what everybody else has been saying. This is ridiculous here. You guys are reaching for power. It's not what the people want. There's all the different studies that previous callers have mentioned. These masks do not work. If this goes through, I've told other people, and they're in agreement with me, we're taking our business elsewhere. So not only are you hurting us physically and mentally, but you're hurting the small businesses. My money, I don't care if I have to drive, it's going to go out of Winona County. So it's a bigger picture, and the people are tired of it. That's all I have to say. I'm sick of it.
Right, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the county board? Anyone else wishing to address the county board? And for the third and final time, is there anyone else?
Yes,
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to address,
Go
if
ahead.
you'll give me just one. I just want to concur that with our great leaders in the past, two that are really prominent, Martin Luther King Jr., who I have the utmost respect for, and Gandhi as well, both said that it is our duty. It is our duty to not follow unjust laws. And of course, those who make the laws don't think they're unjust. But we know, as people who are made with freedoms and rights to our own bodily autonomy, that we have the right to do what we want with our bodies. And these are unjust laws. And so again, I concur, we will have to civilly disobey, but civilly disobey. That's really the only way unjust laws are done away with. Thank you.
Need your name and address for our records, please.
Yes, Annie Castleman, 503 West Howard Street, Winona.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the county board?
Hello.
Hello? Good morning.
Hi. Yes, good morning. Dawn Cronebush, 33578 County Road 12. I would also like to encourage you not to pass this mask mandate. After researching the data, there is just no logic here. Again, reiterating what other people have said, this is a power grab. Why are you doing it? You're hurting everyone. It's a mind game. We all know that. Are our public officials being bribed, paid off by outside forces? Kind of seems like that's the only logical thing at this moment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the county board? Okay, seeing nobody and hearing nobody, we'll move on to our agenda. Thank you for people participating in the public comment process. Item number 3, and just, do we have Commissioner Olson on? Commissioner Olson, are you there? Commissioner Olson. Okay, I don't see him or hear him, so, okay, we'll continue. Approval of the county board minutes. 3.1 is the county board from August 24th, 2021, and 3.2 is this county board special meeting, August 31, 2021.
I'll move to approve 3.1 and 3.2.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, second by Commissioner Meyer to approve the meeting minutes for 3.1 is county board, August 24th, and 3.2 is county board special meeting, August 31. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Approved. Item 4, acknowledge the receipt of the approved committee meeting minutes. 4.1 is the land records from December 4th, 2020. 4.2 is the Whitewater Joint Powers Board, June 17th, 2021. And 4.3 is the Whitewater Joint Powers Board, July 15th, 2021.
I would move to acknowledge 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Kavesi to acknowledge the receipt of the approved committee meeting minutes. 4.1 land records, 4.2 Whitewater Joint Powers Board, and 4.3 Whitewater Joint Powers Board. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Approved. Item 5, consent comments and approval of the agenda. Mr. Fritz, do you have anything to,
I have nothing to change.
okay. Commissioner Kavesi?
Yes, I have a report from the WinLAC meeting yesterday.
Okay. Commissioner Meyer?
Committee report and an announcement.
Commissioner Jacob?
I'd like to pull item 6.10.
Pull 6.10, and we'll move that then to 7.0. All right. Attorney Sonneman?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay. I would like to pull 6.9. We'll make that 7.01, just for a couple brief questions. With that, a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Meyer to approve the amended agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. Mr. Fritz, if you'd read the remaining items, please.
Excuse me. Okay. Consent agenda. 6.1 was pulled for further discussion. 6.2 approved contract with Ultimate Kronos Group for Pro Learning Module. 6.3 approved statement of work and service agreement with Civic Clerk for agenda management system. 6.4 approved contract with Ethan Whitehouse. 6.5 approved LG 2020 gambling application for exempt permit, Bluff Country chapter of the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association. 6.6 approved renewal of purchase of service agreement with Plainview Elgin Millview School Districts number 2899 for transportation of children and youth in foster care placement. 6.7 approve agreement with Riverway Learning Community ISD number 4064 for the transportation of children and youth in foster care placement. 6.8 approve amended contract for COVID-19 vaccine campaign. And then 6.9 was was pulled for further discussion. 6.10 approve agreement for use of Winona Transit Service Vehicle for Commissioner Road Tour. 6.11.
That was pulled.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was pulled. I thought 6.9 was.
No,
Yeah,
six,
both.
yeah.
Okay, 9 and 10. Okay, I'm sorry.
Administrative Fritz,
And
yeah,
not 6.1.
yeah,
Okay.
not 6.1.
Not 6.1. Oh, 6.1. Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay, so.
I did the exact same thing.
All right, so
Yeah.
6.1 was approve renewal of contract with Ultimate Kronos Group. And then 6.10 was pulled for further discussion.
Right.
6.11 confirm payment of disbursements. And that should conclude the consent agenda.
All right, thank you.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Kavesi to approve the consent agenda as read. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. We will, general business, 6.10, approve agreement for use of Winona Transit Service Vehicle for Commissioner Road Tour. And there's some question as to
Yeah, so
this.
I asked to pull it, I guess to maybe, first of all, we'd be using that for our road tour, which would be 1 week from today. And I'm maybe looking to see how many commissioners are intending to go on that. The way our policy is currently, we would need to wear a mask on that bus, correct? So,
I believe so. The current policy would,
When you're riding in a vehicle, more than one person.
okay, so I'm probably not gonna wanna sit the entire day with a mask on, so I probably am not intending to go. Maybe looking for the rest of the commissioners to indicate what their intent is.
right, I would ask, are we planning on, were we planning on attending? Commissioner Olson in the past usually has not. Commissioner Meyer, were
No,
you
I was not going to attend.
not going to attend? Commissioner Kavesi?
No.
Okay, so I think that maybe we postpone the road tour till another time? Is there a need, I think Mr. Kramer extended the idea of approving an agreement, so in future it would be a
Yeah,
placeholder?
I'll still move to approve the agreement for the future. But I don't know if we postpone, or I guess at this point I'd say just cancel, because we don't know how long this is gonna carry on. We weren't able to have the road tour last year at all. This year it's, kind of more from not needing masks to now needing masks, and so anyhow, I will still move to approve 6.10 for future years, that we could still use Winona Transit Service vehicle for the Commissioner Road Tour.
I'll second that. All right, any further discussion?
Yeah, I would appreciate and just an update of some sort, if you could put something together. And I don't care if that's, you want to take, video, or you drive around and we're on Zoom, or whatever you think would be the most instructive.
Understood, we'll put something together.
Yeah, I would be totally open to that.
Yeah, okay. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, all right, so that's a placeholder for future. And yes, if the staff wants to provide some narrative or pictures or anything, that would be appreciated. All right, 6.9, approval of the proposed parking lot study. I apologize, I didn't look. I know this firm did something for the city of Winona. And maybe Mr. Fritz can highlight and inform me, what did the city of Winona gather out of it, other than they don't have enough parking spaces? Or no, I'm sorry, that report said they had enough parking spaces. And as I circle the building several times in the couple blocks to find a parking space today that's more than 2 hours, it's difficult. So I question in my own process what Walker Consultants will provide us.
I think I'll defer to Dave on that. We both worked on it, but Dave's been in direct contact with the consultant.
As far as specifically what they provided for the city of Winona, I'm not familiar with that. I did query the city of Winona if they had any recommendation, and Brian DeFrang, their city public works director, indicated that Walker had done a study for the city of Winona, and that they were that they did a good job, that they were pleased with the expertise and what they provided. And we did query others as far as looking for, other firms to say a firm that specializes in parking and has familiarity with Winona. Walker is distinct in that, which is why we looked out a proposal from them and are bringing that forward with the recommendation.
Well, it makes me, in their alternatives, evaluate up to 3 alternative parking sites for future parking facilities. So that sounds very expensive to me. Sure, solve the problem by buying more land and making more parking lots.
And we're,
at a huge expense.
trying to the extent
Eliminate?
we can avoid that with utilizing our existing facilities more efficiently, more, make better use of those. And they've got, expertise in, giving us some guidance of how to accomplish that. So we're hoping this will be money well invested to avoid that, because obviously buying land and then developing that, perhaps even demolish a building, is not inexpensive.
Some of the, at least from an intention standpoint for our purposes, we need to have a better idea of what the city of Winona, Fastenal, and other major, the Port Authority, for instance, in this area, what they're doing, how that might impact us. For instance, the city, are they going to have certain public lots here now that the Port Authority has bought the Probil building? There's been a lot of discussion about this area in terms of parking. So, some of that is unknown to us, and the consultant will be able to talk to those and interview those people and bring all that together for us, along with the existing parking that we already have. So it's kind of not just what we're doing, but some of what everybody else is doing and how that would factor into our plan.
And we work so well with the city on this.
Well, the consultant worked well with the city. We do. We have a good relationship with them. So,
Mr. Jacob.
Administrator Fritz. So you feel like 26,000? You feel that's a value to the county to spend that?
yeah, we don't have any. We don't have the staff resources to do this kind of work. Some of it is fairly straightforward, but some of it is going to take more time than we have available with staff. I mean, they only have engineering staff is wrapped up in dealing with projects, and we have a significant number of projects more than we've had in the past because of various factors in terms of funding and so forth. So we just don't have the capacity in-house to do this. And I think there are some things that are kind of low-hanging fruit, and then there's some things that might be more complicated to look at for the future. So yeah, I think it's worthwhile.
Well, I distinctly remember being in Japan many, many years ago, and they had double-decker parking. They basically had a car hoist. The first car in went up on the hoist and went up, and the second car in parked underneath them. So they must have had different work shifts that worked out. One of the things that I noticed this morning is there's several, just so that they can be aware of, several pickup trucks, full-size pickup trucks, then with trailers. So they have a right to park, but with that trailer, it takes up about 4 spots in a limited 2-hour capacity. Now that's under the city's purview. We can't change that because that's on public streets.
Right, and some of that's probably attributed to the construction in the area and will go away
Right.
eventually. So there's a big transition time too, because we have the jail and then Fastenal and all the work that's going on here. So there's a lot of things to juggle before it settles down.
All right. We'll just have to get some GoPro cameras and put on our bodies. And then so when we're walking in from the hinterlands into the parking, we're not late for meetings. We can attend.
You would be late, Commissioner Ford. I know you plan ahead.
All right. So I guess we're looking for an approval.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Kavesi to approve the Walker Consultants parking study. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Nay. So it passes. 7, moving into the general business, 7.1, receive monthly financial budget update for July 2021. And is Pat with us?
Yep, good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes,
Thank
Pat.
you.
Good morning.
See you also.
We'll be going over the July numbers. The beginning year started out in July, the numbers started out at $13.7 million. $8 million. Actual expenses were 1.8 million. Ending cash was 13.5 for the year.
Pat, your mic is quite muted.
Okay, let me try that again.
You were loud and clear, and then it went very soft.
Can you hear me now?
Try it again.
Are you able to hear me now?
We can, it's different, but speak loudly, please.
Okay. I'll start over. At the beginning of the year, for July, the revenue started out at 13.7 million. Actual revenues were 1.8. Actual expenses were 1.8. Ending cash was 13.8. Variance is $90,000. Actually, for the whole year, beginning cash was 14.3. Actual revenues were 11.8. Actual expenses were 12.3. Ending cash is 13.8. Variance is negative 486,000 compared to last year at the same time of a negative 2.2. For all the funds, it's a negative 599,000 compared to a negative 3 million. And the one thing I do just want to mention on this, that community services negative $758,000 actually is it seems like a little bit of improvement in the last month or so. So compared to last year. Any questions on this document?
No, seeing nobody
Okay.
questioning it, Pat.
Then we'll go to the summary. Summary cash flow starts out at beginning cash 18.5 million. Actual revenues were 25.3. Actual expenses are 25.9 million. Ending cash is 17.9 million. And the variance is a negative 631 compared to 300 million negative. Any questions on this document? If not, we'll go to the summary budget. Summary budget is being presented is July, and we're at 58%. Looking at the items, there's two funds that are over the 58% in expenses, and that would be highway, but highway is kind of ebbs and flows. And then the other one would be human services, which is at 62%. The interest for the year was 119. We had budgeted 250,000. We're at 48%. So we are a little bit behind at what we had budgeted, but you know that also changes, depends on what investments are coming due at each month. Any questions on this document? If none, thank you.
All right, thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
Okay, moving 7.2, approve, deny future agenda item to discuss surface improvement of Highway 74. I think Commissioner Jacob.
Yeah, I think today we've had a second on it. We need a third commissioner. Is that where we're at today? We need to get this formally on, or is it formally?
No, I think that was the, you need
Yeah.
to move it on.
Yeah, so in my district up north of Elba, DOT came before us a few meetings ago, and then 6 days later, and that was the first I knew that they were gonna take this improved surface off this road, this highway, and put it back to crushed rock. 6 days later, they were entirely done with that project, and I did meet with Steve Dredskowski, Kyle Lake there from MnDOT, and Dave Kramer came up, and we met at the site and discussed things. Subsequently, I've started a petition that roughly between 700 and 800 people have already signed. With concerns about how this road is being singled out and treated different than the population as a whole throughout the state. So I'm looking for support to, maybe have Dave Kramer draft some type of resolution, and this board support that, and we can move that forward to the state, MnDOT, state of Minnesota. So that's why I've asked to have this put on the agenda, and what I'm trying to accomplish with it.
So just so that they tore out the old auto seal or whatever kind of surface it was, and they put down crushed rock,
Crushed
loads
rock.
of crushed
Yeah,
rock.
yeah.
And then did they do dust control?
No.
No, there is no dust control on it.
No, no.
Okay,
And the other section of this highway that doesn't have an improved surface on it, they actually have to close for more than a month during the springtime because when the thaw comes out, and I remember 20 years ago before this had this improved surface on it, they had to do the same thing to this section. So our count is between 400 and 500 cars per day that this section of road receives, which by Winona County standard, I think we're at like 350 is when it actually becomes cheaper to have pavement than what it is to have crushed rock because of the continued adding crushed rock and grading and staff time that it takes to run those machines and the cost of machines. And so it's not only a disservice to the people within the community who have to use the road, but it becomes more expensive to the taxpayer. So we don't understand, why they made this decision, why they put it through so quickly without any public input, no public hearing. Certainly, we wouldn't do this in Winona County to our constituency.
and does it abut the state park? Does that
It goes through
section?
the Whitewater Wildlife
Wildlife?
Management area.
Okay, so
So,
it
I mean,
is
that's,
in the neighborhood.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So are you making a motion to move this?
Yeah, I'll make it a motion to bring it before the board for
Action.
full deliberation by the board.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll vote. Those all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Okay, so it'll go to it passes. It'll go to the next step.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just so the public knows, your petition is still open and active?
Yes. yep,
Okay,
mhm.
all right. And it's on,
They can go to my Facebook page, access it there. I've got copies hard copy, paper copies at businesses in Elba, right at the kind of beginning of that road. So, it's available for people to review. The petition is available for people to review and sign.
okay, all right. Moving on, 7.3, discuss dog breeding ordinance. Just for clarity now, in our process, this was moved for further discussion, but today is not a full-fledged discussion.
Today's the discussion.
Today's the third,
Today is the full-fledged
today's the
discussion.
third one, yeah.
Okay, this
Yeah,
is the
'cause
third
we
one.
need direction that the board wants to give the staff.
But there was no additional information provided.
No, because
At this
it came from an agenda item posed by a board member, so there wasn't any action yet or any
Okay,
backup information or anything like that.
all right. So Ms. Cawley, good morning.
Good morning. And good morning, Commissioners and Administrator Fritz and County Attorney Farman. Currently, our definition of a kennel is 4 or more dogs over 4 months of age kept for sale, breeding, and profit for 6 or more months. It has been suggested that the interim moratorium that was proposed in 2016 be reinstituted on further kennels, and that measures to ensure compliance for kennels be instituted. Since 2016, which was just before I came to the county, the suggestions that were brought forth from those deliberations, letters, hearing, and so on, included that planning staff ascertain what the general purpose of any dog kennel applications is, who are the dogs being raised for, who are the dogs being sold to, dog amounts, types, the length of time that they're going to be held, the number of puppies and number of adult dogs, which is why you see those numbers in the staff reports. Because of our SSTS septic concerns, we want to know how the manure is going to be handled, which is primarily field applied, and if it's going to be stored or spread, and how much manure is being generated, which is pretty minimal compared to some other sources of manure. Traffic, who will be picking up the dogs, how will they be picking up the dogs, and those types of pieces of information are requested by petitioners from staff. One of the things that was pointed out in recent discussions, both formal and informal, was that when a commercial dealer does not pick up the dogs, that it kicks in the ADA accessibility. In other words, if the public is showing up at somebody's site, that ADA accessibility measures need to be implemented. And that was something that, due to my haste in looking over one of the most recent applications, which turned out to be, well, it was denied, but also the applicant had enough capacity in a previous CUP to do what they wanted, which was to add about 10 dogs. But if EDA accessibility has been determined to be needed in the process of doing our technical report, then we will hire the appropriate building inspection official to do that inspection, because as you know, we're not a designated county. We do not have a building inspector and building official on staff. So that was something just in our internal checklist that we did add. It was a good reminder for us. In addition to that, in 2017, because of the numbers of dogs that existed and in some of the kennels, and the fact that apparently registration with the Board of Animal Health was not taking place, or the Board of Animal Health was behind, whatever it was. Again, I wasn't here at that time. But we did some inspections that were quasi Board of Animal Health, if you will, to ensure that dogs had the space that was supposed to have been constructed, that the socialization yards, which we have added, and which at the direction of the board at the time, added to the conditions attached with the CUP or IUP. And so the overall goal at that time, from what my reading indicated, was that a reduction of the number of adult dogs to manage them more appropriately, but primarily from our standpoint of management, to install the outdoor socialization yards. We cannot verify that they're being used, however. So at this point, that's kind of where we're at. In terms of inspection and monitoring, Minnesota Statute 347.37, Public Access Notice Inspection and Enforcement, states the Board of Animal Health shall cause to be inspected from time to time all kennels and dealers licensed hereunder, and all records required by sections 347.31 to 2.40 be kept by the licensees. One critical, I'm not going to read you the whole ordinance, of course, but one critical paragraph there is that any duly authorized agent of the board, sheriff, sheriff's deputy, police officer, the board being the Board of Animal Health, or humane agent appointed pursuant to section 343.01 is granted the power and authority to enter upon the premises of any kennel or dealer at any time during daylight hours for the purposes set forth and for inspecting the compliance with the provisions of, and then it states the statutes. So basically, the county board has been provided with the Board of Animal Health regulations and procedures. And much of the discussion, requests for information, and presentations by the nonprofit involved and who spoke today has centered around dissatisfaction, essentially, with the Board of Animal Health inspection protocol. So right now, our feedlot officer, Carly McGinty, who's on the line, should we have any questions for her, would be somebody who would be assigned if there was a complaint that the construction did not follow the conditional or interim use permit, or that something else not veterinary in nature and not animal cruelty in nature, in terms of the construction or the aspects of the conditional use permit had been violated. In her feedlot inspections right now, if she sees an animal in distress, she can contact the Board of Animal Health for an inspection, but we do not do that inspection ourselves despite having a dedicated feedlot officer. So at this point, I guess I need direction on if we're going to add additional conditions to a conditional use permit, interim use permit relating to dog kennels, if we automatically trigger a letter to the Board of Animal Health after a permit is approved, The one other thing I might add, I meant to mention this earlier about conditions. After recent, and there have been only a handful since I started in May of 2017, but we have added that the submission of the Board of Animal Health numbers, a submission by a kennel to them with the numbers, be also copied to the County Planning and Environmental Services Department, so that we are tracking that they're not exceeding the number of animals or puppies that they stated that they were going to have. So we have made some incremental changes toward the conditional use, interim use conditions, and trying to increase somewhat the stringency of the approval criteria that comes before this body. And I guess I'm looking for guidance at this point. What we might do that is within the framework of land use to further the goals of the county board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Meyer?
Hey, could you just, Ms. Qualley, could you please just repeat that last thing about the copy of the document with the number of animals?
Correct. So
When was that?
So after discussion at the planning commission level and at the county board level, it was suggested, and I'm sorry, I don't recall by whom, but that we get the number of animals and puppies submitted to us on an annual basis. Excuse me. We're back to allergy season. By the kennel owners in January, and then at a recent meeting, once it was discovered that that July was the time that the Board of Animal Health wanted that information, it was switched to July so that we would put as little pressure on the kennels as possible as far as trying to make duplicative paperwork, 2 different times of the year. They got to do it anyway, just shoot us a copy kind of thing, and then we have it in our records and that we can compare it. If at that point then we see that there's a disparity in the numbers compared to what's permitted, which we have not seen to this point, we've seen under the numbers of the most recent permittees, but not over. But of course, then we would go out and do an inspection or schedule a time with them.
So this is new?
This was a new condition that we added to other conditions that emanated from 2016, such as adding a socialization.
So we've been doing it for a while.
The request for the animal numbers was after July this year, so we have not yet made that request. But that's something that we would, I meant to clarify that.
Yeah, so you're already, it's a new thing you're already doing. Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Olson?
Okay, have you had the opportunity to look at any neighboring county ordinances regarding dog breeding?
No, Commissioner Olson, I have not, and it's something that I would certainly be happy to do so on behalf of the board, if you want to compare. We don't have a specific ordinance as much as we have inspection guidelines, conditional use, interim use stated that is a conditional use, and we have the definitions. There isn't a separate, chapter about this topic.
Well, to clear up a rumor, or maybe it's not a rumor, but I've heard that, Winona County is the dog breeding capital of Minnesota. Is that true? I mean, is that just the nature of our residents, or is it the nature of our allowance?
Well, I'm not able to speak to that because I'm not a member of the Board of Animal Health who does the inspections and these counts. I too have heard that we have high numbers of kennels, but not the highest number of dogs. I believe a county in western Minnesota might have that, have a lock on that. But again, that's anecdotal on my end as well. So I think, all of us are concerned about the health of all animal stock in the county, whether it's horses or Carly McGinty's goats. I myself, my mother, in our small town, there was no humane society. We were the recipient of dogs that were psychotic, that were fostered at our house. I didn't have one normal dog growing up at all because my mother took it upon herself to try to fulfill that role. So I certainly have empathy for dog health and dogs in general, but I want to ensure that our land use staff is following what's similar to other counties, or is following what is currently in our zoning ordinance in terms of our protocol.
Well, one of the questions that came up, or the items that were presented, was the definition of livestock. And maybe dogs, through a court case that wasn't really that you can't refer to, but it was decided that dogs were not livestock. I would like to see, as you had mentioned, you haven't had a chance to look at neighboring counties' ordinances. I'd like to see if we're, if ours is too lenient, or too permitting, or what causes us to be the quote livestock or the dog breeding capital of Minnesota. And are there other counties that may be prohibited in some manner, or have a moratorium on further or increased dog breeding facilities?
So if I'm understanding the question, Madam Chair and Commissioner Olson correctly, or the request, that a comparison of how other counties are in the land use area are handling the permitting of kennels?
Well, I think we found that you don't have enough staff to adequately, now you've added another condition, which is going to create more staff time with the permitting process, that perhaps we didn't have enough staff to adequately address oversight of our responsibility. We don't have the opportunity to see if people even have permits, as we found out. Even though it's a requirement, we don't follow up on it. Does that additional staff time require more funding for the permitters? That's the type of thing that I think we really need to review.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Olson, so we don't currently inspect as to the conditions of other conditional use and interim use permits. And I can remember a conversation with Eugene Hansen, retired, or at least term limited out, former chair of the Planning Commission, in regard to solar facilities. Arlie Herber can tell you the same thing. Without complaints, without additional staff, and treating the dog kennel conditional use permits and interim use permits the same as other conditional use interim use permits in terms of the inspection protocol. Even feedlots that have MPCA requirements where we do inspect the lots themselves are on a rotating 4 to 5 year inspection rotation with one dedicated staff person. So I guess the question for the board would be if we would be treating kennels differently than other holders of conditional and interim use permits in terms of inspection, even if we are down to full-time persons in the department at this time, which is additional pressure on my time and existing staff members' time. We don't intend to shirk the responsibilities of the department. It may take us a little longer. Septic installation contractors are supposed to give us a day. They give us about 5 minutes to get out to the sites, but they have to work. And I respect that as a former contractor that worked in the earth. You got to work when the weather is appropriate. So to answer your question, I guess that depends on the decisions of this body as to what amount of work they
Commissioner
want.
Jacob.
If it appears that we don't have adequate staff to do the inspections that we feel are needed, it's my position that that should be incorporated into the conditions of the permit, that it doesn't fall on the general taxpayer, but rather the applicant. So if we need to include fees that pay for whatever inspections are needed, I would prefer that we look into altering what conditions we require rather than putting the burden on the taxpayer to hire more staff.
And this is similar to when we delegated, there's confusing roles here, what the Animal Board of Health, which is a state responsibility, and local. And this came up when we delegated back the restaurant inspection business back to the state of Minnesota. We had 2 people on staff at one time that did all the local restaurant inspections, and it was an area that was the state could do it, and at that time, the board elected to let the state do it. Now, I haven't heard of any outbreaks or problems or concerns. There was a lot of concern initially, but then haven't heard anything in years that the state is inspecting all our restaurant eating facilities and doing it. And so I think we're somewhat confusing. We're trying to put more on local staff when it's the state of Minnesota that has these controls and is supposed to be doing their work. We're supposed to be, in my opinion, it's the land use. And I know Ms. Olson and everybody wants us to be in there, inspecting and the care and the control and everything for these animals, but that's another body, unless we want to take on more responsibility. And how big of a segment of our animal, if you want to talk on feedlots or whatever right now, are we trying to extend resources to? So Commissioner Jacobs' idea, if we feel we need to do this, which is debatable, if the state isn't doing their job, put pressure up to the state to say you need to do your job. Yes, Winona County has a number of dog breeding, and it's partly our residents that have taken this industry on as a way to raise money to pay their expenses, their property taxes. It falls into somebody that has a small acreage that can do this kind of raising of these animals. So it does naturally fall into their realm of expertise. And when this came up a couple years ago that we were the puppy mill of the world, a lot of counties said, we don't have a problem. It isn't a problem. So we could easily compare their ordinances, but they don't feel that there is a problem. Ms. Qualley.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, and this will be very brief, Commissioner Committee. Pursuant to Commissioner Jacobs' point about hiring, since animal welfare is clearly within the province of the Board of Animal Health and Inspections and so on, in that regard with veterinary training, the hiring of potential inspection staff in regard to whether the socialization yard was built, whether the specifications associated with the construction have been exercised by a trained building official, certainly could be something that is useful, and that could be a condition added at the expense of the petitioner. That would be helpful to staff, and then you have somebody that has specific training, not in animal welfare as much as in ensuring that the specifications for lighting, ADA accessibility, and other things that are associated with building inspection have been properly constructed.
Mr. Kavesi.
Yeah, I have two issues. One doesn't really have to do with any changes in an ordinance or anything, but I think we need to clarify how the information goes back and forth between the county and the Board of Animal Health regarding licensure and complaints and all of those things. It seems like we're relying on them to tell us, and they're relying on us to tell them, and meanwhile, nobody seems to get the right messages. So I would really like that clarified of how we get that information, what information is transferred, and that kind of in that realm. The second point is regards to our ordinance. I looked up the American Veterinary Association, and they have a model dog breeders ordinance online, and it's quite interesting. What we're dealing with is some version of land use, which we clearly have responsibility for, versus animal welfare, and the designation of dogs or even cats as livestock, as opposed to they're being sold as pets. So I think it does come into our realm to be concerned about their welfare while they're being raised, while they're, before they're being sold, because they're being sold as pets, and they're expected to be pets with a pet temperament, pet socialization, all of those qualities. And if they're not being raised to have those qualities, then, that's on us in addition to our land use. and if we, how we can coordinate with the Board of Animal Health about that. It seems like they take their responsibility for health, you know, whereas still no one's taking the full responsibility for the animal welfare. And so I'd like our ordinance to have some reflection, perhaps some things like suggesting or having it in place that people who care for the animals have appropriate training. That could be kind of loose or it could be very rigid. But right now, we don't have anything in there that says the people who care for these animals know what they're doing. They're doing it as a business. They want, you know, and it's to their advantage to keep them healthy and to keep them socialized and to have a good reputation for selling a pet, not, you know, not a damaged animal. But that's one thing. You know, right now we don't have any, back to the land use, we don't have any statements about a disaster or, you know, in terms of a physical structure disaster or an electricity outage. You know, perhaps they should have some kind of emergency plan in place or that we review. I am concerned about the noise issues and nobody, you know, that's not exactly been addressed. So I'd like to see if, you know, if our, perhaps by comparing to other counties, if there is some distance involved that we could change our distance to be a further distance. Right now, I think there's enough confusion about all of these things that I would like to see a moratorium while we do this study. Now, I would say, you know, a short moratorium, but I don't want to see, you know, a glut of applications while we're in the process of reorganizing things that could then be grandfathered in. And one other point, do we know the number of dog breeders or dog? Sometimes we use the word dog breeders, sometimes we use kennels. Do we know the number in Winona County?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Kavesi, we have a list of CUP holders for the county.
Okay.
But because we did not have up-to-date animal numbers, that's why we changed the conditional use, interim use permit conditions. Madam Chair, Commissioner Kavesi, with respect to Minnesota Statute 346.39, food, water, transportation and shipment, shelter size, exercise, group housing and breeding, temperature, ventilation, lighting, confinement and exercise areas, drainage, sanitation, and I can go on, are under the jurisdiction of the state of Minnesota and the Board of Animal Health. So by no means is that vague in the statute or in the Board of Animal Health or the USDA for that matter. So I don't feel that we're in a situation of it being unclear with respect. I feel that there might be situations where, much like a complaint protocol here, if I've received something about someone running a junkyard without a license, and there's many more than 4 unlicensed or inoperable vehicles, I should say. When I'm in the middle of the protocol of inspecting that, I'm not going to share that information with anyone because I don't want to speak out of turn. There may be some extenuating circumstances. The cars may be planned to be removed tomorrow. I haven't gone down that path with the county attorney's office per their instructions and that kind of thing. It has already happened that a kennel under inquiry and that had some issues, we believe, although we don't know for sure, was in an inspection protocol, and so the information was not available from the Board of Animal Health when we inquired. Later, we found out that it was re-inspected and it was back in compliance. So Carly McGinty, our feedlot officer, has done some requests for public data. If there's a question, if one of the commissioners has a question, if there's noise complaints, which could mean there's more dogs than is permitted, which is something we could check into in conjunction with the sheriff's office, who would bear some responsibility in this area, if so, and found that they were responsive to her request. So they are a public entity. We can make public data requests of them if we have cause to do so. Can we request a report from them on an annual basis, say every July? If In fact, we did not get a response, which sometimes is a little bit challenging in certain parts of the county. That is something that we can do. We can say, were there any violations? How many? The names. But to get into the gritty details of animal health and welfare, based on the statutes and my understanding of them, I would respectfully request that we not do that because it's already being handled.
I agree. I think we're trying to micromanage something that we want to spend resources, time, and energy in. You can probably take any one particular city block in the city of Winona, and it might have more dogs in that city block by pet ownership than some of these dog breeders are raising. Commissioner Olson.
So, Kay, I think in several of our conversations, I have expressed concern. And I would just think about that building across the street being built. So I come from a building inspection background.
Which has been very helpful to the department too, trust me.
So if I go to that building, I don't do the electrical inspection, the state electrical inspector does. But I have to confirm that that's been done. I have to see the sticker, I have to see. So similar to our CUP process where we put conditions on there, but we never check them. We don't know if they're done. We found that out, so now you've introduced a new measure that in July you're going to try to get a copy of the Animal Board of Health or whoever that has the permit. We've asked the applicants to provide them, or that they're, as a condition, they have to get them, but we don't confirm that they get them. And now we've asked them to provide that. So,
and this would be similar to, in all cases, any building construction that must follow state building code. So we do not, as an undesignated county, go out and determine that people have put the siding on and they have the appropriate electrical permits, because in all of our conditional and interim use permits, it says that all county, state, and local permits be obtained by the petitioner, and it's on the onus is on the petitioner to do their due diligence and get the permits. Now, we had the unfortunate occurrence of someone stating that they didn't know that they had to get a permit recently. But I'm a bit concerned that if the department say you need to get a permit from the Board of Animal Health and get your kennel registered with them, and you need to register with the USDA, and then you have to make sure if you're going to sell those puppies over state lines, you need to be registered here. What if we miss one? In my opinion, and since this is just a discussion, I hope you'll forgive me for stating it, but I believe that the individual petitioners need to do their due diligence for business, just like I had to do when I ran my business. And so if possible, I would like to also try to be consistent between the different conditional use and interim use permits, not singling out one for us doing their due diligence for them when we don't do that for other ones. But if there's information I can get from other counties, if there's a way that we can clarify this, I guess I'm not sure how to move it forward for the board.
I would support Commissioner Kavesi's moratorium conversation while we iron this out. And again, we get an applicant, we give them conditions, we trust that they're going to do it, but we don't verify it. I think if we issue a permit, we have a responsibility to verify that those conditions are met. We have a responsibility to the public. We have a responsibility to the applicant. That might be much larger than what we're talking about just with dogs. But if we're issued a permit, we're putting conditions on that permit, I think the public hasn't.
No, we're issuing a permit for the building, not for the care and everything of the dogs. We don't control that,
But
Commissioner Olson.
part of the permit is that they get the license, and we don't even know if they do.
That happens in a lot of things. So
Well,
how big of a planning
why do we issue a
department do you
permit
want?
and give that a condition and we don't verify it? We don't do that for.
We've done that forever. We've been a
Well.
complaint. We've been a complaint-driven. We put it on, as Ms. Qualley said, these are business people. It is their responsibility. Now, how much hand-holding do we do? How much micromanaging do we do? You know, we've always based the planning department on a complaint-driven basis. If a neighbor sees something that's not right, they can call in but again, how big and how much in, planning staff do you want? And again, you start micromanaging and putting all these extra conditions and everything on a small business, what's going to happen? The price of those dogs is going to go up. Is that what we want? I mean, for people to have their pets? If you add all these conditions and you have to hire, the kennel has to hire an inspector and do all these things, it costs them money. They're not just, any good business person is going to pass that cost on to the end product. So again, we could price them right out of the market. I think Commissioner Jacob had his hand up.
Yeah, guess my question is for Kay. I'm not quite following, Commissioner Olson is stating that we place the conditions and then we don't know if they've, and I'm not aware of the planning commission or the planning department. I mean, we have a pretty rigorous application process, and ultimately, if it's a conditional use permit for someone to build on less than 40 acres, it's all contingent on all the I's being dotted and T's being crossed before we'll give that building permit. And in this case, it would be to build the facility because, we're only responsible for the land use aspect of it. So can you explain to me where he's coming from, that we're not following through with inspections?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Jacob and Commissioner Olson. So I think I can add some insight into both discussions by the commissioners. The development certificate, which is the county planning and environmental services equivalent of a building permit, since we're not a designated county, does have a staff inspector go out after you folks issue an acceptance of a conditional use or interim use permit. We go out and field verify. Megan, our youngest, most recent, younger than me for sure, planner, has been doing that to kind of learn the ropes in the department. And we check off, is it 20 by 40? Does it have the socialization yard built, for instance, in this particular case? So we're not disrespectful of the conditions that are listed. We do verify them. But on a continuing basis, on an annual basis, do we go out and say to someone who got an expansion of their dairy barn, if it's not there a year of rotation for an inspection, have you got 400 animal units in there still, or is it 408 today? If there's a complaint that the manure pile is sliding into the creek, yes, we drop everything and we go and find out and try to get compliance through the zoning ordinance and with the assistance of the county attorney's office. So I don't think we're at cross purposes here. And with respect, Commissioner Olson, the last thing we want to do is make a mockery of the decisions made by this board by not following through properly. And so that it's constructed properly through the development certificate is true, that we inspect that for dog kennels as much as we do any other construction. Do we go on each year and of the list of kennels that we have and do a physical inspection of the facility that was constructed? No, we don't. Once they have an approved development certificate, it goes into at this point, the rural properties database, but what will soon be the OpenGov database. And then if there's complaints or there's discussion or somebody calls up or a neighbor calls up or there's a complaint or something, then we start looking at it again and scheduling an inspection, or we certainly drive by, we see what we see, or we schedule a time to go there, or we go there impromptu.
Commissioner Olson.
Just to clarify, Commissioner Jacob and Commissioner Ward, I wasn't asking for more staff time to be physically on site. What we have found through this process is that a breeder certificate or a Minnesota license or a USDA license is required as part of the permit. We don't know if they have it. We don't verify. It's never been any of the paperwork. We don't get a copy of anything. We just trust that they're going to do it. We've had a gentleman standing right at that podium that didn't know whether he was supposed to have it or not. He was required to have one. Maybe he had one from the last permit. It was a very confusing item, and we didn't have, even though it was a condition, we have no record of who had licenses, who didn't, even know if they were required to or not. I think that is at a bare minimum something we should do.
Commissioner Jacob.
That would, I guess, not be my understanding. If you come in for a conditional use permit, we're not going to issue that permit until all the requirements are met, just like if a farm wants to expand a dairy and they need an MPCA permit, we're not going to issue the expansion of that dairy until we see that they have all the proper permitting in place. Now, this one particular instance, there was cause for interpretation about what threshold, whether it was 5 dogs or 10 dogs, whether that required this additional permitting or not. And so those are what I would consider to be day-to-day operational pieces of each business that comes forward. If they change slightly and there's a need for a different permit, hopefully they're going to be aware of exactly what they need. But for us to go out and micromanage every business in this county day to day, I mean, clearly if there's a violation and they're brandishing that, yeah, we need to go out and do something about that. But I don't think there was even any intent by this petitioner they thought they were in compliance. They thought because they had less than 10 dogs that they didn't need that. It was questioned, and the mere questioning of things seems to imply some type of guilt. We don't know if this person is doing this. We don't know whether that applicant is letting their dogs out for socialization or not. So to me, that's a little offensive to the people who have done the right thing, gone through the application process, have committed to making the socialization yards, and then for us to say here, we don't know whether they're letting the dogs out or not. Well, maybe it was 30 below that day, and it was in the best interest of the dogs to not let them out. So I don't know. I don't see intentional violations here.
Commissioner Kavesi.
Yeah, I see two things. We do have a checklist that we maintain on the conditional uses. So if we ask to see their license or ask them to document their license number on the application, to somehow verify that these other licenses are being followed through on, so that would avoid the confusion of someone not knowing that, even though it's pretty clear in the laws that you have to post your license, has to be a certain size sometimes, and that's the state aspects. But all we need to do is document that they are registered and have a license with the state and the USDA. So I think we can add that. The other area that would double back on that and give us the information is what we've talked about, improving the communication between the Board of Animal Health, where if we ask them for an annual report, regarding our license holders or whatever, language we need to use, that would help. Then we can look at the list and we can see who's on it and compare it to our list of CUP holders. And if they're not on the Board of Animal Health list, then we know something's slipped through the cracks. So, to me, that's not, it is adding staff time, it's adding staff responsibilities. But I think it's important because once the building is built, we don't really wash our hands of it. We still have the CUP, the conditional uses to check on or to be aware of. And whether we do that by complaint, whether a complaint triggers that or something else triggers that, then I think we can still check for it. We can ask for those license numbers on the applications.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Kavesi, that is actually a little bit problematic because the asking for the license, the Board of Animal Health license numbers and the licensure prior to construction of a facility that has no dogs in it yet. If we say 1 year later or upon completion of the development certificate, could you please verify that all state and federal permits without naming them so that we're not culpable if we miss one because this is not our job, the animal health aspect of things. I think that could be something that could be added to the development certificate.
Sure.
But in terms of the conditional use, interim use issuance, that's the very first step. In some cases, they may not build for 2 years. The lumber prices are high right now. Maybe they decide to defer until 2 years hence, that kind of thing. So the idea of it, in order to make it or in order to not make it impossible for the petitioner to execute if they in fact aren't built yet, don't have any dogs, and have no reason to be registered to get on the radar of the Board of Animal Health yet.
So you need a pending file.
Well,
They build, they get the permit to build, and then when they get the animals and they get, but here in Winona County,
we
it goes
check.
into a pending file, and then when those documents come in, you can put it in a,
right, yeah, I was actually thinking of the gentleman that was looking to expand and to change his operation. And, that case, he could have been asked for his permit numbers and he would have said, and we would have perhaps taken care of that before he came to the podium.
So if we're making a distinct change, then we're not requesting electrical permit numbers and other kinds of permit numbers for other kinds of conditional and interim uses. We're singling out the production of dogs and cats, I presume, to create a condition in future that would include a pending file or post-construction. Once you have dogs, you check back in with the county and you state that you have obtained all state and federal permitting or something like that. And that's something that could certainly be added if that is what I'm hearing.
Commissioner Meyer.
Thanks. So before we move forward, I'm going to go back to what Commissioner Olson said in the beginning about looking at what other counties do and looking at what our counts are and how that really stacks up. I don't not support these ideas. I think that would be great. I'm interested in it as well in exploring the whole noise situation, because that is a thing that even when I was on the Planning Commission, people came in front of us and complained about the noise from barking dogs. And I'm interested to know if an individual, can an individual citizen find out, A, if a dog facility has a conditional use permit in the county, and B, can they get from the USDA and from the state of Minnesota information about whether those folks actually have the license at the state level, or can an individual citizen just not get that?
Excuse me, Madam Chair and Commissioner Meyer. Yes, a request for data can tell you whether or not somebody has a conditional use, interim use permit here. Since it travels with the property, if staff is unaware of the sale of a property and say a son, a cousin, a nephew, whomever, niece, is now operating the kennel, it could be a different name by now, but they still have the right to operate a kennel on that conditional use permit or interim use permit. Yeah, we can find out, does this address have, one in place with a simple data request? And we're tracking.
And I'm thinking more, not just of your staff or our staff, I'm thinking just an individual.
Yes.
I as a citizen.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, I was unclear.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then in terms of the Board of Animal Health, much as Ms. McGinty did recently, just to say, hey, is there a clog up, or can we actually make a data request and get information? That can also be done. If it's not speedy enough, or if the agency is not, the Board of Animal Health is not responding, they have someone who's a director there as well that one can, bring up with one's politicians, kind of thing. And I don't know about the procedures with the USDA, how opaque that would be. I'm presuming that citizens in this country can make requests of the federal government. How promptly that will be returned, I don't know. But I don't have personal knowledge of that, whereas with what Ms. McGinty did recently, I mean, yes, we are a county that may have sped up the process, but I don't have any lack of comfort thinking that a citizen could not get at that
Yeah.
information.
There's hoops to jump through, but yeah, you can.
Yes.
But I do,
Commissioner.
I do support this idea that we want to, you know, we want to know that they have fulfilled the requirements of the additional requirements, which include getting your licenses if that's what you need to do. So I don't think it's too much to ask when you get them, send us a copy.
Well, that isn't currently a condition. So, sorry, Madam Chair and Commissioner Meyer, the condition that was added most recently is the numbers of dogs to be reported in July.
But I think I
just-
recall that it did say on, when we saw that condition, the permit request that came in front of us, just whatever was 4 weeks ago or whatever. As with all things, if you need a driveway.
All state and local permits.
It's a
Yeah.
boiler,
You
it's a
need to- yeah.
common phrase and
But, so are we asking then that they provide in addition to the Board of Animal Health, this is just theoretically, because we're having a discussion, USDA permit, the electrical permit, and so on. So are we saying only things relating to the transportation of dogs and dog animal health be sent to us for verification after the development certificate is issued? Are we saying that every permit that could be associated with building of the structure be sent to us? I guess I would need some clarification on that.
Commissioner Olson.
And again, I just want to clarify, Commissioner Jacob, Commissioner Ward, I'm not asking for us to go out there and count nails in the board, count dogs in the kennel. They are required to get a license annually for their dog breeding facility. Piece of paper license. We don't have a copy. We don't know if that license exists. So I'm asking that we have a copy on the file for that permit holder of the license that they're required to have. That's basically what I think we need to have. We don't have that. We don't know if they have that piece of paper that we said they have to have.
Right.
It's a permit.
Commissioner Jacob.
When I inspected some of those facilities back in 2016, they had them all hanging on the wall. And I remember one of the activists came up and, you know, they were berating this dog kennel because they were in violation, because they had the proper documentation, but it wasn't hanging on the wall. And that was the violation. Since, you know, they made a big deal, they're in violation. So they do have to have them. I think they have to display them, whether we need to go out and look at their display annually or not. I mean, you're saying you now want them to send them in, not just display them on their walls.
But I can agree with Commissioner Olson. A copy is easily photocopied and put in our file, and then we do know.
Commissioner Ward, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, I just have one other kind of question about it, and that is, so if I mean, I'm interested to know if we can find out from the state agency. I understand that they regulate the animal welfare. If the individual never gets the permit, then there's never any welfare checks. So it doesn't seem like it's too much to me to ask. Show us the license, then we know. If we were to report our issuances of conditional use permits to the USDA and the state, that's not something we do right now.
Correct.
So yeah, I would support that as well, but I'd also like to know, what do they say? I mean, there was a situation for a long time where the Minnesota Department of Health was the one who certified wells to be opened, and the DNR was the one that certified whether it was a high capacity well. And so there were many wells that were high capacity wells that the DNR wasn't regulating because the two agencies weren't talking to one another. So I'm curious to know if we can have an agreement with them. We'll tell you this information. What will you do to follow up on it?
Commissioner Ward, Commissioner Meyer, I have no idea if something like that, you know, could be affected. I think from our end to send notices to them, and whether or not we receive a reply to that, you know, I don't know. Getting state agencies such as the MPCA, the DNR, Bowser, and so on to sometimes provide communications after there's a complaint or a violation, nearly never happens. We may assist them in an inspection, but we are not told the outcome. Again, it may be in a complaint protocol and that kind of thing. We certainly can send a notice that they have been given this permit, but that doesn't mean that it's been built yet. Or that there are then, once it's built, animals in it, or animals that meet their threshold. Does it put them on notice that they could potentially in the future have somebody that sends them something? Yes. If we asked for every July the number of annual animal units, and I'm just speaking extemporaneously here, thinking of what the various board members have said, that we add to it that a copy of the licenses currently required by dog kennel operators without specifying, be also submitted, a photocopy, because they're having to have one envelope anyway. 2 more sheets of paper perhaps would not be onerous, just a theory. And they could say, well, we don't have any dogs yet. Because when we do permitting for feedlot, we're sending out a second notice. Oftentimes people have closed a feedlot within the rotation of the 3 to 4 or 5 years that we inspect the different categories of feedlots. Or there might be a note saying, I've now fallen under the threshold of 300 animal units, say, or 100. We get notes all the time updating us when we send something out. So if we send out the request, if there's additional pieces of information that the commissioners would like to have, in addition to the numbers of animals, that's something that we could possibly request at that time. That takes out of the equation either a pending file, or it takes out of the equation, we haven't built it yet, we don't have the dog threshold yet. So then you pencil that in the letter saying, we don't have any dogs, we haven't, so therefore we have no permits. I'm just trying to manage it to also achieve the goals and objectives that have been brought before us.
Commissioner Jacob.
Yeah, so I think Kay just kind of went over what I was going to suggest, is that we wouldn't go to the other state agency. We would put the requirement on the applicant. We need these forms annually. So, I mean, yeah, we can't communicate with every other government agency and expect, but we can expect that from the applicant.
And I think we're on the radar. I think anybody coming in looking for a permit in this area knows that there is a higher level of scrutiny than there was 5 years ago. And so, and I think there was a lot of learning going through with even internally what wasn't quite what we thought it should be.
And it might be worth our while to create some kind of a fact sheet that we can share with people who have concerns, that tells them what would you do in order to, figure this out from the state, or just sort of giving them the general information, who it is they need to contact. And
So for direction to the planning department and Ms. Qualley, she could review other, I heard the request to review other counties. If there's something in another ordinance that might be applicable or something that we want to add. I've heard that we would like the applicant to provide us all copies of the Board of Animal Health licensure to be put in their file locally. And that's upon the applicant, not the Board of Animal Health, because sometimes it's hard to get information out of state agencies. And I mean, like any ordinance, anything, it's always, there's always constant review and updates and things that can be done. Does that satisfy the discussion today?
I would actually like some information about how our numbers compare to other counties in the state.
Yeah, and that can be obtained. I think Ms. Qualley can
Correct.
get that obtained.
Ordinances across
And keep noise in mind.
Our slogan is, let's make it a great day to live in Winona County. I would like to have it a great day for our people and for I don't want animal cruelty or animal issues with cows or dogs or birds or, and part of this is our image. And I think it's our duty to provide as much information on how we're handling this issue with great respect for all parties.
So I have a question. What does a municipality do with all the little green or blue bags of dog shit that got thrown in the waste stream?
I don't think they're land applied, Commissioner, but that is a suggestion that I can make to city government. in the larger municipalities.
We
should
talk
the
about
board
being,
so
we
choose.
talk about being environmental and we talk about being green, but you think of all the plastic that's involved in picking up dog shit across the country. And there's a lot of plastic, and we have a problem getting rid of plastic. And those little plastic bags, I've been told, jam up recycling machines and gears and everything. So, we got to think about it, the total picture here.
I have one quick question.
Yes.
I'm sorry to jump in.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Olson. Is it this board's recommendation that we add to the conditions for the July reporting that copies of the germane permits be added to that? Or is that something that will be part of the next discussion with review of what other counties are doing and what noise ordinances are doing?
I don't know. I don't think it's out of line to ask an applicant for a copy of something that they're supposed to have.
Staff can add that to staff reports, and the county board can decide to remove that condition or strengthen it at their pleasure.
Okay. Commissioner Olson.
I'm just going to use an example. I just had to get tabs for my car. I was required to have insurance. They didn't ask me, do you have insurance? They said, do you have your insurance number in the company? So I had to provide that. Proof that I had insurance. That's pretty simple. I think it's a requirement. We should ask for it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Jacob.
Well, technically you were asked to provide proof that you had proof, whether they called that company
Verified
and
it.
checked whether that number was valid and paid for.
They don't.
They didn't.
I had to show them a piece of paper.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Ms.
All right,
Cawley.
thank you for the homework and
Right.
the discussion and allowing me to participate.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on. 7.4, discuss and provide direction for county administrator executive search firm proposals. Ms. Holte's joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, you had a lot of reading material.
Yeah.
So really just looking for direction. We do have representatives from the companies online. So if anyone has questions of any of those individuals. Or if I can answer any questions for you.
Who did we use? I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I had a question.
Yes.
Who did we use in the past?
David Drone.
Yes.
And once, twice, every time?
I believe we've used them first.
Okay.
So I'm trying to pull up. So David Brown wants $21,000.
Yep.
And what was, I didn't write them down.
Governor HR was 22.5, the last
I
one,
think they were all pretty,
and the other one,
Baker,
24.
24, Baker Tilly. So they're all within the, they've compared notes. They know what it, what they can collect. We've used David Drown, and just my personal observation when I look at little websites that go around the state and who counties who they're looking to, when they're looking to hire. And this is a very broad generalization because I don't know the others, but David Drown, I see a lot of the same names pop up in the finalists. So it feels to me like they've got this list of candidates that are job hoppers. And they just kind of try to fill them into slots that might, the others I don't have, and we've used them. And, it's, well, we got Ken out of that, and that, Ken and I go back and forth on that.
It didn't have anything to do with the recruiter, though.
No. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of game to try somebody else. I don't have any experience with the others. Actually, I'm going to the AMC conference tomorrow. I would like to ask maybe a few counties if they've had experience with these other, or, and again, I suppose we can't continually delay this, but I take great, trust in talking to other counties, what their experience has been with some, contractor or individuals or computer software, like who's using it and if they've experienced good things.
but there were references in the application.
Yeah, and I didn't have time to, I apologize,
I
the
guess
weekend was busy.
My one thought with David Drown was that they really have a base in Minnesota. And I liked that. Candidates who know this state,
who know the region, that I think can bring something additional to the position. Especially when it comes to working with our communities and working with the state legislature, because so much of our funding is really dependent on the state legislature and how that works. So I saw that as a positive.
Commissioner Olson?
Yeah, we used the DDA company, David Jerome, before. I know that, I think the last time we had introduced our own little mix on the interview process where we had a citizen involvement just to ask some questions. They weren't comfortable with that initially, but they accepted it, and afterwards, I think they said they kind of liked that. I think the city of Winona also did I participated in the city of Winona executive search interview process. So I like their process. We've been happy with them. They're in the same ballpark as the rest of them. I don't know why, if we've been happy with them, that we would change. So I would support this. We use David Jones.
Commissioner Jacob?
Yeah, I'll agree with both Commissioner Meyer, Commissioner Olson. If it's not broke, don't fix it. They've worked well for us in the past. Technically, their bid is the lowest too, right? Of the three.
Yes, I think so.
And as for what you'd say, job hoppers, I mean, those are people who are interacting with David Drown Associates because they're in this business, they're needing employment, and of course they're going to be the ones who are, I guess, in the hopper, so to speak. They're looking for a job, but I think it served us well in the past. I would support David Drown.
So Commissioner Ward, you're going to the AMC conference?
Yes.
And so you would prefer that we wait till the 28th to make a decision?
If you guys want to go with them, I can harass them just like I can any other. The one gentleman that works with us, I can picture his face.
Gary?
Yeah, Gary. He knows where I'm coming from, so I guess I can, go ahead. I mean, it's a name that, yes, a lot of counties use, and they're known in Minnesota. Is that good or bad? I don't know. Sometimes people from another part of the country have different ideas. We got ideas from Illinois, a neighboring state and stuff. So, I mean, I don't know that it necessarily has to be a Minnesotan, to take this job. But we can deal with the list of candidates.
The accent helps.
The accent.
I'm sorry, I would have a bias probably.
Well,
Yeah.
and there's Vikings and Packers.
Yeah, there's yeah.
There you
yeah.
go.
Oh my.
I thought the applications were very similar. I did appreciate the information that Baker Tilly supplied about their staff, showing quite a racial and cultural diversity. I'm not against David Drown. We have used him successfully. So,
We have a motion? Or
So
a
moved.
preference?
David Jones.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Meyer to hire David Drown and Associates for our executive search firm. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay? Okay, go get David and tell Gary he's got his homework to do. Okay, all right.
the lowest amount also.
Yeah, by just, yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
They were very similar.
Yeah, like I say, they do their homework. They know what they can. All right, we had committee reports. Commissioner Kavesi, you had a report from WinLAC?
WinLAC group met yesterday. We did a lot of business things. We approved a logo. We have successfully been through the process of applying for the We Are Water exhibit with the state, and we do have approval on that. So we will be having a display that travels, and it will be next March and April, which is good timing. It's another piece of the public outreach in a sense. And the starting piece of the public outreach is next Monday night, starting at 5 at the Tao Center. we have a kickoff meeting. And because we're covering a broad area of 4 different counties, we will have 4 follow-up meetings at a later time, because we understand this is a busy time for agriculture too. So we will have the public kickoff meeting, dialogue with the public, discussion, and then we will have 4 follow-up meetings and the We Are Water display later next year. We're working on a mission and vision statement. We're discussing the watershed issues, and we had an excellent presentation from Jeff Hastings on the driftless area, including Wisconsin, a bit of northern Illinois, and Iowa and Minnesota. One figure that stuck in my mind from his discussion, a couple things. First of all, they worked on 40 miles of stream restoration just in southeast Minnesota. And I mean, I've seen some of their work after the flood and ongoing work and all of that. And they do an excellent job working with Trout Unlimited and DNR and several partners. But economically, he had a number that said in the driftless area, again, which is those 4 states, parts of those 4 states, trout angling has a $1.1 billion annual economic impact. Trout fishermen come and they stay, they buy things, they have equipment that they need, and updates on their gear and all of that. And that 1.1 billion for parts of those 4 states, just for trout angling, I think is quite significant. So that's one of the things, obviously, in the WinLAC, that we're protecting our cold water streams. So.
Well, and that may go up with Administrator Fritz retiring. He may be doing more trout fishing, so you'll need to buy more equipment and gear.
Yeah,
So we'll watch for an uptick in that revenue.
Or at least lunch.
Yeah.
For accessible area.
Can I ask a question? Do you know if they know physically where they're going to host the
4 different meetings?
No, not the meeting so much as the We Are Water display when they get it.
We're working on, locally, we're working on the Historical Society, and we're seeing what we could do to have a virtual option. Rochester had a virtual option a year or so ago. So we're trying to do that. And
So I apologize. I've heard of that, but is it a physical
it's a physical
model?
It's a physical
it takes up-
display. Yeah, and it includes interactive aspects of water quality, water treatment, water accessibility, all of those things about our water locally.
How big of a geographic space does it take? 5 by 5,
we
6
haven't
by 6.
designed it yet. So
Oh,
we don't
you
know.
haven't designed, oh, okay, I
No,
thought it
we
was
just
something.
we just got the grant to do it.
But it's been
Okay.
going around the state.
There's been different things
Yes,
in the
and it does
past.
go around the
Soil and
state.
Water had some kind of display where you pushed a button and you saw the water,
Well,
didn't they? Didn't Soil and Water have something a couple years ago?
The Legos.
There
Yeah,
was
I know.
one,
I
there
thought
was
they-
one in Lanesboro.
Yeah,
That
there's been
We
a,
Are Water.
yeah.
And yeah,
just a
and
couple years
Rochester
ago.
had one a year or so ago. So I mean,
Okay, so you're
it is
building
a
it.
traveling exhibit, right? But we're focusing on our area, which will include, our karst geology, our cold water streams, some of our unique aspects that other people may not be aware of, which would also encourage them to come down and spend their money as a trout angler. So, but anyway, yeah, there's a training next week that we're attending, more on the nuts and bolts of how. And we have several partners working successfully with St. Mary's University and Winona State. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. So.
Okay, all right, stay tuned. Commissioner Meyer.
Yep. So the MICA board meeting happened, and I don't think you were on that
No,
day.
no, I was not.
One of the presentations was from the state demographer. In our most recent census, our population has gone down in Winona County. And okay, I think that mostly that's a bad thing, just in terms of reimbursements. But in terms of the MICA fee, it's a good thing because it went down this year.
Didn't somebody new join?
Yes, that is true. Chisago County joined.
Yes, I heard that.
Do you want me to do the announcement too? I had an announcement and.
Oh,
one-
yeah,
Yep,
go ahead.
Okay, so I'm actually going to see if I can't get Administrator Fritz to make the announcement, just so that all the other board members are aware of the Compassionate COVID campaign, which is a voluntary effort.
Well, I guess expanding on our encouraging vaccinations, the media campaign that you actually just
Right, the
approved
contract.
with the
yeah.
amendment, yeah.
Mhm.
Public Health has been working on a campaign that would include local artists or other things in the community, that businesses and so forth, that could encourage vaccinations in different ways. Some of it would be media related. Some of it, we haven't worked out the details, but they are working on looking at things like incentive programs, where maybe like the state had a card, you got some money for showing that you just got vaccinated or recently, discounts at stores, things like that. Some of it's conceptual right now because it's really early, but we're trying to put the pieces together. One of the problems we ran into was our public health staff is pretty maxed out. And so, we've given authorization to bring in temporary personnel, one person, to kind of supplement that under the ARP program that provides money for specific things like that. And also under the grant program, public health has some additional grant money. So we're using that money. So it's not levy money. It's not county reserves or anything like that, to bolster the vaccine encouragement campaign. And I think it's that compassionate, the tagline is kind of grown through the process to get people to do it voluntarily.
So I've reached out to a pastor who has a pastor group that meets on Tuesdays, and she was willing to do just a brief recording, and she would spread that through faith leaders, at least here in the city of Winona. Winona State is interested in participating because we know that the vaccine rates in people under 50 are lower. So the idea would be to encourage them. And so they seem pretty, it was Andrea Northam, she seemed pretty excited about it. So I would say, I guess if you guys have ideas, let Ken know.
Yeah, actually, Commissioner Olson has already shared several that I passed on to the public health group. I think the difference between the vaccination encouragement media campaign that you just approved is that this brings in some components of the community actually doing some of the spots, some of the things, and also participating in some of the facilitation of it, rather than we're just doing a public health announcement, on the radio, from Winona County. So it makes it a little more.
This is all voluntary.
It's all voluntary.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's none of it's, it's just encouraging vaccinations. Obviously people still have the right to, do what they think they need to do. So.
Okay, all right. Anything else to come before the board at this time? Commissioner Jacob, no, you did not. Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kavesi, second by Commissioner Jacob to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, we're adjourned. Let's take a